Hello? Send help. Go away. Hi! I'm so glad you're here. This week we're going to make the third and final project in the Twisted Tales theming. So far we've done Little Miss Muffet, and in the last one I did my own take on Sleeping Beauty. And while I really liked how both of those turned out, I think I'm most excited for this one, because we're putting the fairy in fairy tales. I think one of the most classic types of characters in a fairy tale is a fairy godmother or just a fairy in general. They're there to grant the wish of a main character, to teach them a lesson or aid them in their pursuits. Like Cinderella's fairy godmother helping her go to the ball, or like Pinocchio with the blue fairy. Geppetto wants him to be a real boy, so the blue fairy grants him consciousness. Notice how I didn't say she makes him a real boy. That's because oftentimes with these magic spells, there is a catch or a rule that has to be followed. In Cinderella, the spell goes away at midnight. In Pinocchio, he's granted awareness, but he's still made of wood. And I've always found it interesting how there are certain limitations and rules to these magic spells, granting these wishes, always with an unfortunate twist. Fairy tales were meant to teach children lessons, essentially by scaring them. If you follow these rules, this bad thing won't happen to you, and you'll get your happily ever after. But this bad thing might happen to you if you don't listen to what I tell you. But often in these fairy tales, it's with life-altering consequences. It's not just, you did a bad thing and you get in trouble. No, it's, curses. And given these parameters, obviously the magic had to have rules, and obviously it had to serve the purpose of furthering the lesson. Even though if you think about it, the rules are made up by the fairy to force a lesson upon this person. And oftentimes, if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, which you're really not supposed to with fairy tales, but what was the lesson Cinderella was supposed to learn with her beautiful things disappearing at the stroke of midnight? That good things go away? Sorry, she's already learned that lesson. She's lost both of her parents, freedom within her own home, she gets abused daily. Like, what was Cinderella supposed to learn? Why was Cinderella the vehicle for the lesson and not the stepmother and stepsisters? And I could get into the patriarchal side of this, but I'm going to resist, because if I don't resist, we'll never get to the point. What did Pinocchio do? Why did he have to prove himself? He was just a block of wood. He doesn't know what existing is. Which I think part of the reason why the Pinocchio story exists is to try and define what makes a good human existing in this world, telling the truth, not doing bad things, listening to your parents. But he's not really given a chance to be taught by Geppetto. He disobeys once, and then he's just on this track of misfortune. One mistake that this little boy makes derails his entire life for however long this all happens. And it feels almost like that fairy tale should be for parents on how to parent your kids. But of course it's not. The responsibility is on the child to just be a good person immediately so you don't put the burden on your parents, which is crazy when you're talking about Pinocchio, who has just come into this world. I don't know. I could go on. I'm not going to go any further. The more I started to think about how many fairies there are in fairy tales, fairy godmothers, just fairies in general, etc., the more I started to see how cruel the fairies actually are. They're helping with limitations. They're helping for a price, even though these are magical, overpowered, immortal beings who want for nothing, which is exactly why I think the thing they want is entertainment. Fairies have a very interesting mythology, and while I haven't done enough research to fully give a lecture on the mythology of fairies, historically they have been feared and revered. But given that they were feared at one point because of how mischievous and careless they were with the humans, I kind of started to make up my own idea of the fairies in the fairy tales are not good. And then my imagination ran away with everything, which then led to the idea that I have for this week. What if the fairy godmother was an evil fairy? And not only that, but what if it's the same fairy in every tale, coming into these characters' lives just for the entertainment of seeing them get something good and then suffer when it's lost? Because that happens. Cinderella's stuff disappears at the stroke of midnight, Pinocchio isn't a full boy, Sleeping Beauty gets cursed, and the fix is she falls asleep for 100 years? You couldn't do better than 100 years? Sorry, I'm never gonna get over that. So this week, I want to create an evil fairy godmother. She is only entering these characters' lives to give them a taste of a better life, only to take it away once they break her rules. Does she have to put the rules in? No. She just wants to mess around with these people and play with them. They don't mean anything to somebody who's going to be around for 1,000 years after they pass. And because of the shape-shifting ability in the mythology of fairies, I've got the idea that it's the same fairy presenting differently in every story. Does the lore track with that? No. So this fairy I want to create, I want want to take inspiration from older depictions of fairies, not necessarily in fairy tales where they often have pointy hats like witches, which almost led me down the path of every witch in a fairy tale is actually this fairy as well, but then I thought I was getting way too off track and I focused back in on just fairies. I want to take that floral fairy aesthetic and give it a little twist. This is the sketch I have for my evil fairy godmother. She has a very floral theme going on, but all of the flowers involved are poisonous. The skirt is inspired by nightshade as well as the berry accents. These very plump dark berries found on nightshade. Her sleeves will be inspired by wolfsbane, and I haven't decided if I want to make a hat yet, but if I did, it would probably be Lily of the Valley. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to translate this in real life. I'm going to do my best, but I think not being able to tell that it's a venomous, they don't bite. I think not being able to tell right away that they're poisonous flowers is kind of the point. I somehow also forgot to say that this is partially inspired by the Never After campaign in Dimension 20. The inspiration coming from the fact that the fairies are not really that good. However, I'm breaking it a little bit more and to not making sense by making it one fairy. So yeah. For this, I was going to make a pair of wings, but I am so far behind on everything I had planned for this month that I just went ahead and bought a pair of wings and we're going to redecorate them for this purpose. I think I do want to try and make a wand, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet because I kind of want to make it glow, but I'm not really sure how to do that. So we're probably going to do that last. But for now, I'd like to get sewing, so I'm going to get to work. It's so late and I'm so tired that when I was putting this shirt back on, I saw the backing of this extra button and I thought it was a flower. And I thought, oh, that's so cute. Oh wait, that's not a flower. I need to go to sleep. Anyway, I got quite a bit done. The skirt is basically constructed, so is the bodice. However, it's very lackluster. It's just not giving as much as I would like it to. I'm gonna add some sleeve head attachments to puff up the sleeves. I think I'm also going to paint the petals to give it some dimension. And then I might make a corset of some kind to go on top of it because all of this just looks boring with nothing to break it up. I think when the leaves are on, it will help break it up, but those are still very, very wet. Tomorrow I'm probably going to paint first so that everything has a chance to dry, and then while it's drying I will make the sleeve head attachments and the corset to go with it. I wasn't going to make a corset at first because I feel like I make a lot of them and I don't often get a chance to reuse them, and I like things to be reusable, but I have to remember that I'm making costumes. So in addition to the things I have to make that I'm adding to it, what's left is to attach the leaves and the skirt to the bodice, repainting the wings, and making a wand of some sort. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but we're gonna see what we can do. But we're not doing any of that tonight, so I will see you tomorrow. Hello! It's the next day. A lot to do today, and I kind of wanted to have everything done today, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. I already had a pretty limited amount of time to work on this week, but now that I'm adding things to it, I have even less time. So I'm just going to get straight to work. I just finished making the berries for the dress, and that was the last thing I had to do, so it's time for the reveal.
Once upon a time, that is how these stories usually begin. But for one creature, it is not just once, but twice, thrice upon a time, and many, many more. She appears in your lowest moments to wipe away your tears. She says she grants wishes and makes dreams come true. She has gone by many names. The Fairy Godmother, the Blue Fairy, the Good Fairy, the Enchantress. She has appeared to many characters and cast many spells. Not every spell grants a wish, however, and even wishes have a price to be paid. When misfortune next befalls you, do not accept a wish from a fairy, unless you are willing to play her game. Wishes are tests. Pass and you shall live. Fail and you shall wish you had never met your fairy godmother.
Well, that's that. I think my hesitation to just wholeheartedly love this design, which I do. I think my only hesitation is that I don't think it gives fairy godmother, I think it just gives evil fairy. I think if I were to do an evil fairy godmother, I would do a dark version of the Cinderella fairy godmother. I think that's what my brain is missing, a cape or something. But I do think this design fits my reimagining more than the typical fairy godmother costume, because the idea is that this is a shape-changing fairy that changes her appearance. I just dropped my mind. Who changes her appearance to appeal to the story that she's jumping into, so this could be her standard look. It's a very loose idea, and I didn't go into this planning to do the poisonous flowers idea, but that kind of developed as I kept thinking about my other fairy costume and how it's based on flowers, so I thought an evil fairy might have poisonous flowers. And I do really like this poisonous fairy design. As far as each individual piece, this thing is kind of a mess. It's a little bit big, and I did take it in already, but it's still a little bit big, and I didn't finish the bottom edge of this. It's just kind of tucked up under, but I do think it still needed something like this on top of it because it just was too monochromatic with the dress being all purple. So I also added more of that black stuff to the sleeves to tie it in. I do really like my wolfsbane sleeves, and these sleeve head attachments really helped get the silhouette that I wanted. So I'm really glad I added those in. That being said, they're very big, perhaps too big. I don't know how well you can see the shape of the petals on the skirt, and I'm not sure what I could have done to make that a bit more obvious. I think I would have to change the shape of the entire skirt to have a more bell shape, kind of like my pumpkin gal costume that I made last year. I would change the structure of the skirt entirely to do more of a but I do think that the berries and the leaves are kind of what help it look more like the nightshade plant. But in reality, nobody's going to really be able to tell that except for me. Well, and you, because I just told you. As always, I love using my elf ears. I think this thrifted wig was perfect. It's actually a Snow White wig, and I think every piece worked together very well, except for the wings. The wings are very small and you couldn't really see them very much. I wish I'd had the time to make wings, so with the schedule I was keeping this week, I kind of knew wings weren't going to be very feasible for me, so I'm glad I made the realistic decision and just decorated a little pair of wings. Aside from the wings, I do really like how everything turned out, especially my wand. I love my wand. I think the wand turned out so well. And I covered the battery pack with this glitter sheet and put Velcro here so I could still change the batteries when I need to, because otherwise it was going to be completely inaccessible if I covered it with hot glue like everything else. And the switch is there at the bottom, so all I have to do is use my pinky to turn it on and off. That's the prop for this video, and I love how it turned out, and I'm a little obsessed with how cool it is. So despite some small reservations I might have on this, I really like how this turned out, and if you do too, you can let me know by hitting the like button. If you want to see what I'm doing next and join the channel, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I post, hit the notification bell and YouTube will let you know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!